we have a lot of preconceived notions about how relationships should be.
Yeah.
Based
totally.
on, again, media that we consume, relationships that we've been in the past, what our friends talk about, what our parents had, right? Parents are probably one of the most defining factors of what we want a relationship to look like, for better or for worse. But I think that it's super important. It's very necessary that you start looking inward and really taking a step back. Like, now I have this. Now I know what the responsibility is. I'm ready to participate in it.
Yeah.
What do I want my relationship to actually look like?
Yeah.
For me first, right? Because it will have to come together and through conversation with the other person, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're not participating in this interaction for yourself and what it's doing for you and how it's adding to your life, you're about to participate in an interaction that's about to waste a lot of your time for no reason, give you unnecessary trauma that you have to overcome. Do like all this
Not
stuff.
the unnecessary
Right,
trauma.
I hate, like, dating, I love dating. Dating is great. But dating is also the catalyst to so many things that people have to unpack over time because they made a wrong decision or they didn't negotiate the terms of the engagement. I'm still going to say welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Intellectual Podcast. We're your hosts, Jem and Renee.
Yes,
and we're talking about not episode 5. We're talking about month 5 of this dating series that we're on, and we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Planning this one was kind of difficult.
Yeah, not gonna lie, we had a little bit of trouble, and I think it's because we were kind of existing in these, at least for me, these like conceptual things that you kind of practice and act out. But it's like, then how do you then have this conversation that can be understood by others?
How do you put these shits into words, and make it practical?
Which we learned that Jem just a lot better than I.
Yeah, I don't know why I do, but
you can really funnel ideas really well, and I'm just like living in the clouds. I'm like, I will just say things, and you're like, all right, so this, and I'm like, how could I not come up with that? Why could I not have just said what you said?
Why could I not have just said what you said?
But instead, I said what I said.
Right.
And it sucks.
Instead, I said what I said. Hey, yo. Now, in my brain, I'm just following a logical progression.
Yeah.
So give me like a conceptual idea. Like, all right, so that is that, and that is that, and that is that. And if that's that, then it has to be that, right? And then that will be that, and then that will be that, and that connects, and that makes sense. Cool. That's our thing.
Right.
But I do that in like
you do it so
5
quickly.
seconds.
You know what? This is why we're friends.
Right.
This is why.
Making up the difference. This is why we're partners too.
Yes,
here we are. See?
Exactly.
You give
Put
me
our brains together.
And then we're doing that thing. But so we decided as we're wrapping up this series that month 5 after exclusivity will be relationship negotiation, which
that is what we're talking about today.
When you actually came up with that, right?
Yeah. I kind of came up with it just because using my current relationship as like the
template.
Yeah, exactly.
But hey, see, so you provide the idea, and once she said that, god damn, everything was so clear. I was like, oh, it is a negotiation. Let's go. And then all the little things started falling into place like Tetris blocks.
Exactly.
Beautiful. But
and I think it's like, I don't know, when you said, so this episode just being all about like right after you have that conversation of, you know, you're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend, all that.
Go see that movie, please.
Yeah, I know.
Just go see it. For the people are, we've had enough.
Yeah, we've had enough.
I'm the people. Jem has had enough.
I can't say it without thinking of that. Anyways, after having that conversation and solidifying those labels, as we had talked about last week, there is a negotiation process that goes on. And I thought that was like a really good encompassing way to define the communication that is had post this conversation of exclusivity and talking about what the type of relationship you guys want to have, and laying that groundwork of figuring that out. I thought that was like a really good way of putting it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
No, yeah. And two, I think because relationships are so predefined and everyone like has their own idea of what a boyfriend looks like, what a girlfriend looks like.
Totally.
the conversation that should be happening, the negotiation that should be happening, doesn't really happen, right? You just get exclusive, and all of a sudden you're expected to be a person's idea of what their significant other is supposed to be.
Totally.
But relationships are supposed to be tailored to what you want, what you need, how you want your life to look for the next X amount of years.
Yeah.
And it is your job to kind of guide that.
Totally. And tailored specifically to the two of you, of who you two are as people individually and how you guys want to be together. Because that will, person to person, that relationship will look different.
Right,
should look different, honestly.
Like my relationship with a girl will look very different than her relationship with like somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like to describe like relationships. We're all like chemicals on the periodic table. And when you put together different chemicals, you have different reactions. And
that is so interesting.
I have really great ideas.
Yeah, man, science. You know how much I love science.
We love some science.
Periodic table. I got so excited. Oh my God.
Table and relationships.
Table. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like just where my brain goes when we talk about like, we literally say the chemistry you have with a person, and the chemistry, it's literal chemical reactions that are happening with different people that you engage in a relationship with,
Absolutely.
So I see it as that.
Way to think about it.
Yeah.
But my question for today, since we don't have any pop culture things to talk about.
No, life is boring out in the world.
Or we're just,
at least for me.
The only thing that's happening right now is just submarine memes.
Yeah.
And we're kind of over it.
When this has been posted, it's long gone.
I still think it's going to be posted. Like a month later, we're still going to be seeing those submarine memes.
We're still going to be talking about it.
But this question is going to be relevant in today's discussion.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a rant a little bit because I'm just so tired of hearing people call themselves empaths. The self-proclaimed empath.
Yeah.
They just feel so deeply everyone's pain all the time. My question today is, do empaths even exist? Right?
Yeah.
Because all the people that are self-proclaimed empath seem to be self-induced of situations that they place themselves in.
Totally.
So instead of like taking accountability and being mature and evolving to a level, you wouldn't have to be in that situation in the first place.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, I'm an empath. That's why my life sucks. Like, no, you're irresponsible and you lack discipline. That's why your life sucks.
That is it.
That's why your life sucks.
I've heard that people who kind of self-diagnose or self-proclaim themselves as empaths, or what is actually happening with that person for the majority of those people that call themselves empaths, is that it's some sort of like trauma response essentially, and it's more so like hypervigilance because of when they were rooted from childhood trauma of some sort. So you're more hypervigilant, paying attention to people's emotions because
just super reactive and shit.
Super reactive, like maybe you had a parent who you had to like be really aware of their moods, et cetera, et cetera. So you're really hypervigilant and paying attention to those things, but it's not necessarily empathic because it's coming from a place of like trauma, maybe anxiety.
Right.
But I don't know.
It's less about the world and more about you protecting yourself.
Exactly. But you're saying it as such. I feel like calling yourself an empath is like similar to calling yourself an old soul. You can't like self-diagnose that. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm an old soul.
Right. The moment someone calls themselves an old soul,
I like listening to oldies, and this new modern way of existing just doesn't apply to me. I should have been born in the 1920s.
Exactly.
Shut the fuck up.
Insufferable.
Yes, very, very like leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like everything. Like, oh, I just feel you're feeling something. Like I'm an empath.
Yeah. I'm like,
I'm going to wring
please
your neck.
leave me alone.
Right? Like,
do not ask how I'm doing.
If you were actual empath, you would know that you should be in my face right now.
Right.
Leave my presence.
That's horrible too. If like you're in a situation and someone's like, I'm an empath, I can feel it. What's wrong? Why
you are the
You're
problem.
Irking me. Oh, that's so annoying.
So,
hate it.
Question: do empaths exist? And are you an empath? Let me know. just out of curiosity.
I don't think anyone who's self-proclaimed an empath is going to want to tell us after what we just said.
Nah, commit. Be consistent. If you talk about that, let me know.
Say it with your chest.
Say it with your chest. I mean, me having an opinion isn't going to change the fact that you may or may not be an empath, right?
Oh, this is also true.
So let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know. You might be able to change my mind. I don't think they exist. I think y'all full of shit. Anyways.
Oh, wow.
Moving right along into the meat. I hate that word that we use for
the
content.
Yeah.
I'm so over it now.
We have been using it. To the God, that's the only word I can think of. It's the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, like, ugh.
It's the meat and potatoes.
This annoying ass white dad way of describing.
Sorry. We were actually just talking about this.
You did this to me.
We were talking about this at the beginning of us recording this. I work with a lot of the demographic of the people I work with are a lot of older white human beings. And and also my dad's white. So it's
Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree at all.
No, so I'm rubbing off on Jem now that we have discussions every week.
And that's not you have so much more better qualities. Why is that the thing that's rubbing off? Like, of all the things that can be rubbing off, why is that?
Because it's the best one.
No, it's the one. No, it's the one that I hate the most.
Yeah.
So the universe is like, no, this is the one you need.
Right.
Balance. No, fuck that shit. That shit's so
your brain
annoying.
will remember the negative first before the positive.
Damn, that's so sad.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's our survival instincts as humans.
We have come so far, so we should be better.
Yeah.
Which is also the thing I think that people are like, oh, this is like our based instinct, right? We have a natural prerogative to do a certain thing. I was like, yeah, but we also have intelligence and consciousness, so we have the ability to supersede our emotional, natural, instinctual responses. But we're not ready for that conversation.
No, but we are ready for this conversation. Negotiations. Wow, that was such a good transition.
It would have been if you didn't say how good of a transition it was.
I like to look. Words of affirmation are my love language.
For you, your own words.
I will give myself compliments all the time.
Oh, that's so cute. That's 100%. So healthy.
Yeah. Goodness. Anyways, but we are talking about negotiations, or that being the overlaying theme.
Yeah. So let me set the scene really quick, right?
Totally.
So it's the day after. You've just defined the relationship. DTR, right? We just DTR'd. We're excited. We're happy. We're lively. We're a little giddy. We just told our friends,
ooh,
it's official. Guess who's not single anymore?
Yeah.
You told your single friend, and now she's mad, a little hater or whatever. But you don't. Beth is always like that, so she doesn't bother you anymore.
It's okay, she'll come around.
She'll come around, right?
Yeah.
When she finds her own man, and she, whatever.
Exactly.
You're good. You're happy, and now you're like, damn, I'm a girlfriend. And you think that you're a girlfriend. Yeah. You're not a girlfriend. Ooh, you're not a boyfriend.
Wow. Okay.
Not yet.
No.
You have the title. You know what the title comes with. You know what the responsibilities are. But you haven't created the dynamics in which your relationship will operate in.
Yeah, this is true.
And this is where negotiation comes in.
Roles beginning to be defined.
There's a lot of, like I just said in the introduction, we have a lot of preconceived notions about how relationships should be. Yeah. Based on, again, media that we consume, relationships that we've been in the past. What our friends talk about, what our parents had, right? Parents are probably one of the most defining factors of what we want a relationship to look like, for better or for worse. But I think that it's super important. It's very necessary that you start looking inward. Yeah. And really taking a step back. Like, now I have this. Now I know what the responsibility is. I'm ready to participate in it. Yeah. What do I want my relationship to actually look like? Yeah. For me first. Right. Because it will have to come together and through conversation with the other person. Right. Obviously. Yeah. But if you're not participating in this interaction for yourself and what it's doing for you and how it's adding to your life, you're about to participate in an interaction that's about to waste a lot of your time for no reason, give you unnecessary trauma that you have to overcome. Do all this
not
stuff.
The unnecessary trauma.
I hate, dating, I love dating. Dating is great. But dating is also the catalyst to so many things that people have to unpack over time because they made a wrong decision or they didn't negotiate the terms of the engagement.
Or even later on in your relationship, you guys are having to deal with the consequences of not having these conversations earlier on.
Right. And maybe and to that point too, right? You're doing, you created a habit that wasn't necessarily something that you wanted to do,
right.
But now 6 years later, you're over here still doing that, and you're fed up. You're like, I'm tired of doing this, and you're like, but you've been doing it for like, what's the problem?
Exactly.
Like that's crazy.
Now
like, no, I never liked
expectations to continue in such a way that you didn't.
You never liked it to begin with, and you never said that.
Or maybe you just like didn't understand. Maybe at the time, but then as it's like revealed to yourself, you kind of just, this is what the relationship's supposed to be. This is what my partner expects of me. So I'm just going to continue doing it.
And you never questioned it.
Yeah.
But no, the questioning is important. And in that questioning, you can start and lead with the fact that everything is mutable. You can change any aspect of your relationship to suit yourself because that's just the nature of the interaction.
It's always going to flow. These conversations that you have into like at the beginning of your relationship when you first define it, it's going to change and it's going to evolve, and that's fine. The expectation is not that these are things that will be like completely solid and unmoving, but it's a place to start, right? For the beginning of your relationship, what you know now about what you want at this moment.
That's a good one. Yeah. What you know now in this moment.
Yeah. Because I think it's easy to get like caught up in like, well, I'm not sure. Like, what if this like changes? I don't want to ask this of them. But I don't really need that. Like, you can kind of talk yourself out of things. I think especially if you have more of like an anxious mind, I should specify that too. Someone who is like more anxious and
an overthinker.
Exactly. Can kind of talk yourself out of these things, or like, you just define the relationship. This is a really exciting moment, and you kind of don't want to like, you don't want to, it can be easy to not want to say or do anything to like ruin that essentially. Right. Like what if I say something the next day, they're like, actually, never mind. Yeah. I said I wanted to find this and I did it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Actually, this seems like something I'm not really into. You seem like high maintenance and all that stuff.
And then that's scary. But I think like we had said in the last episode, really talking about fear and facing fear, like going into a relationship, it's not going to be without, you're facing a lot of fear. I think ultimately just that's just the name of the game.
Right.
And so that is going to be inevitable at the end of the day. But yeah. But also too, like it could also just be a situation, not necessarily like avoiding out of fear, but you can get caught up in like the honeymoon phase of it all and just kind of forget to talk about these things.
Right.
But I would argue like, because negotiation sounds like such like a hard word.
Right. Like you're sitting across from each other with like a bunch of contracts. Right. All right, sign here on the dotted line, initial here type of. Like, it's not that type of negotiation, people. Come on now.
It's not. But I feel like if you're excited about the person, you kind of already, hopefully these conversations will naturally pop up, right? You're like, ooh, like what do you like? I don't know. I think like, I don't know, like long distance is a big one. That was a big one for my relationship. So that's like why it first comes to mind. But
elaborate on that. Tell the people a little bit more.
Oh,
why not?
Why not? Yeah, just even because I think this was kind of part of the reason why this had initially got brought up, or this idea about like the negotiations. And my scenario is lifestyle specifically. It can be contextual to the person's relationship. Me and my relationship, when we first made it official and put those labels there, my boyfriend was going to be potentially gone for the summer. And so something that we had talked about and his life path, career path, he wants to be, he expects to be like moving around a decent amount, being in different places at different parts of the year. And so that was kind of the initial, and that was coming up, well, boyfriend, girlfriend, all right, in a few months, I'm going to be on the other side of the country. And so we had this conversation about like, what is a long distance relationship, something that you want, and how long distance and how long term, or sorry, I should say, how long are you willing to be long distance? Like, so I'm gone for 6 months. Is that something that you're okay with? At what point does being long distance is it not okay for you? So for me, I was like, look, if it's like 2-3 years, we're not in the same place at all. Right. That's really hard for me to do. That's a consideration that I have to have on the relationship.
You have to really ask yourself, is that even a relationship at that point? It's like, I haven't seen you.
Right. We're consistently not in the same place. And for me, I was like, is that an indication that we're just on two different life paths if we're just not literally in the same physical place?
Right.
And that was something different for me than for him. It didn't mean the same thing. We talked about within that levels of like independence that we desired in our relationship. How much do we want to, what areas were we bringing together, and what areas were like, okay, in this space of my life, this is, I need space in this way to still be my own singular person. Right. And so we
not get lost in the whole rigmarole.
Exactly. We love that word now. Ever since you corrected me, it's a rigmarole. I swear it.
It's actually rigmarole.
Well, add a little spice.
Yeah, I like saying rigga.
Yeah.
But it's technically rigmarole.
Rigmarole? Yeah. No, I don't like that.
It's gonna,
rigmarole.
So rigmarole. Whatever.
Exactly. It's super fun. But yeah, so, and those conversations did naturally come up because it was like, oh, I already knew. I'm going to be like away. We're going to be long distance for this amount of time. Let's have this conversation. So it opened up a conversation about then in the future when we have maybe moments where we're apart, how do we want to communicate when we are long distance? Granted, once you are long distance, those things become
clearer.
You figure out the flow. You can only talk about it so much. You know what I mean? Because I've never been in a long distance relationship ever. So I'm like, I can say this is what I would want.
Yeah.
Exactly. But who actually knows once it plays out, right?
Fair. And I think in that the negotiation is just a string of conversations that outlines your needs that haven't been spoken before, or in that sense, your expectations for what different factors affect your relationship. Like for you, it was distance. For other people, it could be like alone time. Like, not intimacy. What's the opposite? You just said it. It's an I word.
Independence?
Yes.
Oh, I just did not think it would be that obvious. I'm not gonna lie.
So that's how my brain.
Sometimes the brain just can't get it.
Just dumb. So like independence can be one.
Yeah.
How many dates you guys want to go on? How many times you need physical intimacy?
Yeah.
Different types of physical intimacy that you can engage in.
A more serious one, how long you want to be dating before marriage. That's a big one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
How your familial interactions. Breaking down what they expect because of their family, cultural conversations. And, religious stuff can also be a thing. Like I want to go to church XYZ. Like, well, I don't really do that, but like I'll do it for you like once a month, twice a month, whatever. And it's like in these, I don't think compromise is really the goal, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right now, I think it's more important to voice the terms. Like I consider all these factors just terms that need to be discussed, right? So like I want to go to church once a month. Well, I want to go to church every Sunday. And then in that we talk about it, we find out why church means so much to you. Why I don't want to go to church that often. I maybe play basketball on Sundays. I have a whole thing going on. Type of shit. And then in that we have the conversation and the negotiation happens and we find what works for the relationship. Because like we said before, right, a relationship is really two life paths branching off into one. Right? That doesn't mean that the two ones that were there before just suddenly stop existing. It's those two and you're creating the third one as you go along. Right?
No, 100%.
And that has to be talked about. That has to be balanced between what you both want and need. That beautiful stuff.
Yes. And it's like, and it's not just like you're saying, it's a continuous conversation. It's not just being talked about. It's then being like acted out, right? So you can start doing something, right? Of being like, okay, we'll go every other week to church. We're going to just continue with that example.
Right. It's a good example.
Yeah, it is a good example. Going, every other week and you do that for a time. Then you come back and you're like, you know what? Like, I feel like I'm the person who only wants to go once a month. It's like, I feel like I'm missing out on these other things. I really can only commit to this amount of time. This is like, et cetera, et cetera. And you can renegotiate in that. Because I think it's important. These things are being acted out as well. It's not just like not in the way that it was before when you were simply just dating and seeing whether this person was someone you wanted to be your boyfriend or girlfriend. you're more just speaking about these things for the most part and kind of trying to woo one another over, court one another essentially. And now you're kind of in the relationship or whatever. Now you're going to hang out with the family. Now she is asking you, hey, can you be there for this important like event I want you to be there for? And now your
presence matters more.
Exactly. So like the negotiations, that you've been talking about, you're also having to put into action to kind of then see what works and be flexible like within that to see what works and doesn't work for both of you guys. But I do agree. I think once you're initially, I think going back to what you were first saying, it's really knowing where the ideal exists for you, I think is really important. But I do think there is some like, has to be some flexibility within that,
100%. And in that, right, your continuous conversation, nothing is set in stone. I understand that like terms and contracts and negotiations.
And we were talking about it.
Yeah, it's like yes. This has to be, you have to decide everything that's going to be the state of your relationship from day one, and you can't change that. It's like in that acting out, in that conversation, in the continuous revisiting of things that apply and don't apply and work and don't work for you. Yeah. Nothing is really set in stone. Totally. But it's more of a guideline that we go. Because if there's no structure, then what are we doing?
You have to start somewhere. It's like, all right, let's start here.
And then go from there.
Exactly. You're
cultivating the field, and you have to have the guidelines. And maybe the freaking tree, the plant that you're growing, doesn't want to grow the way that you planted it. Yeah. And it's actually tilting this way. So you have to put a little structure there. Right. And that will be the new term. And that will go until it stops working and things change and people evolve, right? People aren't designed to stay the same over time. Maybe suddenly you go to church and you have a newfound realization of what church meant and you like the people and it's like, well, I'm going to go. Let's go like every Saturday too. Like, and that can be the new thing, right? Like, well,
I used to go a lot when I was a kid.
5 times a week?
Like though? 3 or 4.
All right, that's still a lot. Yeah. Like, for sure. Yeah. So it can be.
And I think throughout all of these episodes that we've been discussing this, kind of just bringing it back and always like reminding, and I'm sure we should probably actually have like maybe an episode talking about this more, maybe not. I'm prefacing a lot. Sorry.
We did say that we're going to try to not preface. I've been doing a great job.
I'm clearly doing horrible today on not prefacing, trying to not preface. Understanding yourself and having self-awareness is important in this. You cannot, negotiate when you don't even know what your terms are with yourself, know. And I think that's the scary part. And I think with that, my heart goes out to those people of like who try to go into relationships and lack this self-awareness and then kind of get lost in whatever that person is like, well, these are my things. And you're like, okay, that sounds okay with me. I want to be with you. I want to be in this relationship. I'm afraid that if I say anything, I don't really know what I want. So this will be fine. Right. Granted, like, I don't know how you feel about this. That's sometimes kind of how you learn as well. Because I look back at my college relationships. I was in 2 relationships in college. The first one and even the second one, even my second relationship. And it was a very healthy relationship, but there weren't really these conversations being had, like really at all.
I mean, how can a 21-year-old?
No, exactly. So it's like
21. I know. A 19-year-old.
Those relationships were back to back. So it was like 18 and then 19 and then to 20 something. I don't know. But those conversations were even being had. So I guess like when you're really young in your younger 20s, late teenage years, those I just think, and I'm like, I wasn't even really having these, like, there wasn't negotiations. We were just like, I really like you and I'm attracted to you, so we will be together. Right. And that was about it. But then I learned a lot in not having conversations, right? To then in my next relationship, my first post-college relationship, to know that those things were necessary. Yeah. but it's still like is scary because you can kind of get really lost in that. So I don't know. That's like a little bit of a tangent, or just not really like. There's not really any point to that. It's just my feelings,
which is fair. No, going back to your previous point about knowing yourself and self-awareness.
Yeah,
I think it's really easy to be caught up in the moment and want to be really generous.
Yeah,
with what you're willing to do for another person, because you have this sentiment of care and concern. It's like, if you need all these things enough, why wouldn't I want to do that? If you're like my boyfriend, you're ready to commit to me in that way.
Totally.
But to negotiate from that point is to neglect yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And it works for a time, but it does not last long, because even if you're not consciously aware of it, you are always constantly operating from a self-centered person, not a selfish individual. Like, you're not like fully focused and you're not like aggressive about it. Yeah. But like you can only observe things from your standpoint, from your perspective. Yeah. And if you're constantly existing for other people without doing anything for yourself, you'll run out of fuel very quickly.
Quick.
You'll be so irritated and bothered, and all these things will be affecting you. Ooh, that's what it's called, burnout. Yeah. Right? You'll burn out so fast, and you don't even know what's wrong, but it's because you've been neglecting yourself for X amount of years, and now it's all coming to a head right now. Secondly, your point about your feelings, that you said is not a good point, but I think it's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Because while you never negotiated in your early relationships, I always negotiated in my early relationships, because I was never sold on the fantasy.
Oh, okay.
I was never disillusioned to, because honestly, that has to do with my upbringing and my parents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
and your temperament.
But my temperament is a byproduct, the upbringing and my parents. Right? I saw their relationship, and it really informed how I started formulating these ideas. Yeah. And my thing is, like, there's a lot of unspoken things in their interaction that they can't stand and they can't talk about. So I'm like, if that's the problem, then the solution is to discuss them beforehand.
Right. 100%.
I was a little ahead of my time. Right. Because in 1819...
People are like, what?
No, yeah, exactly. Because
you say 1819?
Yeah, because...
years old. I thought you were saying the year. Go ahead.
Because an 18, 19-year-old Jem interacting with 18, 19-year-old people, talking about like, oh, then like, what do you think about this? And like, I want this, that, and the other. How do you feel about that? That was too much outside.
Well, most people don't know that at that age.
Regardless of whether they know it or not, no one wants to have to be forced to think about things they're not ready to think about. Sure. So it completely took them out of the whole romantic iteration of like, feeling like I really like them. It was like, oh, like if you have all these like limitations and hesitations, you obviously don't like me as much as I thought you did, and I'm gonna go find somebody that does. And I was like, it's not really about that. Like, I feel as strongly about you as I did 3 seconds ago, but I think if this is going to last, this is gonna work, then these things need to be talked about. Yeah. At the end of the day, those situations and those relationships, and I understand that now in retrospect, they were never meant to be long-term relationships. Totally. So that was just a fling. I dated her for 3 months and we go about our business. I'm an 18-year-old. It's not that real. Yeah. But I was being too deep for my britches.
You were really like, let's discuss.
Yeah, let's talk about it. If we're going to interact at all, might as well have a conversation. They're like, I'm just trying to hook up and like go about my business. Like, this is too real for me. I just got out of a high school relationship. I'm just trying to have fun type shit. Like, okay, that's fair.
That's so funny. On. Yeah, I don't know. Because it's funny that you had that so heavily on your mind. Because I think like myself, like most, it wasn't really... Because even thinking about my second relationship, my first relationship was horrible. Right. I think I've already said this. But my second relationship was a good relationship. But it was just, we never like... Not that we never... It was just... The same conversation, it just was not had. It's just like, well, we're existing, floating. And then towards the end of our relationship, more serious topics were brought up. But I think like a part of that even, or just like even what can happen there is it's too late to have those conversations. Things have been built up and like with your parents, like resentment has been had. It's going to be really hard to kind of take it all the way back. you know, and
because you're emotionally triggered and involved already.
Yeah.
There's no going back.
Exactly.
We already said what we said.
We already, right. We did what we did. We said what we said.
It's over.
Exactly. 100%.
But like when you're 30 years of marriage, you just can't.
Right. You can't just like yeet out of there.
I mean, you can.
You can. My parents did.
As I was saying, I was like, oh, well,
my parents
you technically can. But
yeah, they fully yeeted.
My parents didn't.
Yeah.
But so there you go.
Right. But that's why it's like I think important to have that conversation right off the bat, always. And I think with like communication in general, right? Like I think everyone in the world on the internet is saying communicate in a relationship.
And no one's telling what to communicate about.
Right.
They're just saying
communicate as soon as possible. But
what do I have to say?
What do I have to say? Well, I think it's hard to say what to communicate about, because I think to a degree, like I said previously, it can be contextual. Like you can give like these like concepts of what things should be talked about, like we're giving today about like, okay, what are the things that we are negotiating about? I think at the moment we're talking about the negotiation itself at the beginning of a relationship when you first make it official is important, because you are right off the bat forming a really healthy and necessary habit, regardless if this relationship lasts for forever or not. It's important to right off the bat just to start that habit of talking about these things.
Set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe people aren't like, I don't want to say that this is the way that you should do it without disclaiming the fact that this doesn't necessarily have to happen like the day after. I know I said the day after, but it's like you can definitely use your discretion and feel it out a little bit. And if you want to sit inside the energy that is, I just have a newfound relationship, and you don't want to weigh yourself down with thinking about how to approach these type of conversations, that's 100% your prerogative.
Sure.
I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, we're just saying that it will be necessary to have these conversations, and the earlier you have these conversations, the better.
Yeah. And I think like maybe a good place to start in like what should be talked about when you are now boyfriend and girlfriend. I think time might be like, I think that's a really, if you are a person who's like, where do I even start? Like, what do I need to know? What do I need to negotiate on? What do I need to know for myself of what I want? I think like an immediate one that comes to mind for me is time, in the sense of like, how often a week do we want to spend with one another? Because that really does look different for different people. And I think that foundationally, you spend time with one another, you get to know one another more, right?
Naturally. Hopefully.
And so I think talking about, okay, now that we're together, like, does the time that we are spending, is it going to change at all? Are we spending more time together? Do we want to? Do we want to spend, well, hopefully you're not spending less time together. I don't know. I feel like that'd be like a weird thing.
Unless you're like, that's only necessary if you're spending a crazy amount of time when you're dating. Like if you date like every day, which, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that in the
That's
first
not
place?
what we said to do.
No, we hey, stop it.
Yeah, no one said that.
Yeah, do not spend every day with that person. Right, exactly. Oh God, do not spend you need time to breathe from the other person.
Caveat being, if you're in college.
Yeah, I mean that's just happening. I don't think we're necessarily. I think college relationships are a whole world.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, this is how we talked about our dating series.
We should talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
I have things to say about college.
Okay. Yeah. College relationships. Yeah. I feel like that's a whole like world, because I remember like when I got into my relationship now, I remember being like, I have never been. It's such a different way. I felt like granted, now I'm like, whatever, it's like a relationship. But I remember initially feeling like I've never been in a relationship post college. So how do I navigate? Yes. It feels different for some reason.
And it is arguably different.
Yeah.
But
I feel like that's like a really like easy, good place like to start. Like, do we want to spend like roughly, and I think once you get into a flow, you don't really count how much you spend time with someone. You know, you just kind of do when you're free, when you're available, yada, yada, yada.
And then too, I think the quality of that time is also just as important.
Yeah.
So you're spending time together, but like, is this time going to be at home just hanging out, like just being present with each other? Do we go out during this time?
Yeah.
If we're seeing each other 3 times a week, what are we doing within that time period?
Yeah.
And is that helping the relationship progress in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I think that's something that is negotiated through action. Whereas like you can talk about kind of like initially, I think, you know, depending on your work schedule, hey, I think, you know, hanging out like a couple times, 3 times a week or whatever seems like pretty normal to me. Like I do have this stuff I have to do and like yada, yada, yada. I say yada, yada a lot.
You do.
Even though I have nothing more to say after the thing that I just said. So, you know, this works for me. And then you spend about that much time together a week and you kind of look back and you're like, hey, like, I noticed that the time that we have spent this week, we haven't been doing a lot together. We've kind of just been hanging out on your couch. And I want us to do like something more. Maybe like once a week we can do like a dinner night together once a week and make it more of a thing. We ask
maybe we cook together.
Yeah, we play a game or something like that. Games are fun. Card games. Oh yeah.
Uno, baby.
Exactly. And yeah, and then going from there, or even checking in, because I know something that me and my boyfriend do. We'll like check in and be like, hey, let's want to hang out, or you know, so we'll check in about like, do you want to hang out? It's okay if you don't want to. And we've been hanging out a lot this week. If you need just time to rest this week, totally fine.
Yeah.
But I want to come over. Like
I love how realistic that is too.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like also you can kind of forget that your significant other is also a human being.
Right, exactly.
And they, as much as they love you,
yeah,
might not want to see you 24/7.
Right.
And like, even if you have like a wife too, right? It's like, sometimes I just want to go for a run.
Yeah.
And not be bothered by your incessant nagging.
Totally.
But just like your presence. Like, because that's just how it is.
100%.
Like, it doesn't mean I love you or dislike you any less.
Any less, yeah.
It's just, I just need some time for myself.
Exactly. And some people, like me, go into hermit mode. And so sometimes I'm like, I need to be in my own bed tonight. Sometimes I'll tell, we'll do that with one another. We'll be like, honestly, I have this tomorrow. I just need to be in my own bed. I need to get some good night's rest. And they're like, for sure. Yeah. We're just like, okay, that works.
And there's nothing wrong with being like hurt by that.
Totally.
Like you can feel some type of like, damn, I really wanted to see you. But
then that's when the partner kind of, you always meet it then back with, let's do something, like, especially if you notice that your partner is in need of that time and maybe you're a little too tired to give it at that moment. Let's do something tomorrow, or let's do something. I'm free on this day. Let's go do this.
Right.
Always, I try to always like bring it with like an alternative option. Right.
And true, that can also be the negotiation too, right? Because if you're a person that needs alone time and they're a person that needs contact, then they should naturally be able to get you out of your cave. Yeah. And you should get them to spend a little more time with themselves. Yeah. Like, that's compatibility. That's beautiful. That's what we're aiming for, right?
Totally.
So, good things like that. But I guess moving the conversation along, flexibility is like a really good word. Yeah. I think that should be the theme of the theme of the conversation, because more so than compromise, I don't think compromise is the same as flexibility. Yeah. Compromise is you.
Yeah, expand on that.
Compromise to me, and I'm sure people, like, feel free to engage in the discourse, because this is just off the dome, straight up.
Oh, hey, fresh out the brain.
I think compromise is you relenting your position in favor of someone's more aggressive need. Right?
Yeah, maybe they're more convincing.
They clearly need this more than I do. Fine, we can do this. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Versus how I want to categorize flexibility is that you are making allowances for people's needs while maintaining
yours,
what you want. Right?
Yeah.
This is the thing that works for both of us. This is the thing that I want, and I will move what I want around what you want. So we're both, which is, I guess, what people want compromise to be.
Yeah,
right?
maybe that's what people are kind of talking about or really referring to when they say that word.
But what it looks like, because I guess my definition of compromise comes from what I see when people are compromising in real time.
There's something that you're like really self-sacrificing, like a piece of you.
And I don't think it should be about that.
Yeah.
And a lot of experts say this too. Like if you're compromising and you are denying a part of yourself in the process, you're just going to build up a bunch of resentment after a while of having to do that over and over.
That is so true. That really was like Yeah, I like that.
The example that they used for that was they were saying if your wife asks you to go to the store, like the mall or something, to go shopping, and you really hate shopping, say no and be okay with saying no. Because it's like, oh, I'm just going to go for her. Then you're going to not enjoy it. You're going to build up all this stuff that's not going to be productive in your relationship over time.
Right.
Versus if you go for you, right? It's like, you want to go to the mall? I do want to go to the mall. Let's go to the mall. Then it's like you're doing it for yourself. And you don't have any qualms about it.
Right.
So
100%.
Compromises should start first. You do things for yourself. And if you are doing, like, sometimes you will do things for your partner because it's something that your partner wants to do.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're not sacrificing something of yourself to do that, then be happy and free and do that. But don't
100%.
expect anything from doing that, right? Just do it because you want to do it.
Right.
Don't do it for them. Do it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Totally. Yeah. That's actually, that's a good one. Cause I keep bringing up my relationship a lot in this conversation, but
it's relevant.
It's relevant. I'd hope it's relevant.
Right.
That was a conversation that, Matt and I would have, about just like certain things that were important to him that he would want me to kind of show up for, and things that were important to me that I wanted him to show up for. I'm like, I don't want you to be doing this. I don't want you to be doing this because, oh, well, I'll go for you, like yada, 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 because you're coming with like an attitude, like a bad attitude, or like, I can tell you don't really want to be there. So I'm trying to like support you to be there. And, versus just doing this and seeing the benefit for yourself. So how we like had phrased it was, say I asked him if he would come to like some family event. I want you to meet my dad, or like go meet my dad again and, have a relationship or whatever.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll go. I'm going for her. It's her family. I'll see her, whatever. Versus shifting that mindset to being like, this is my girlfriend who I love and I want to be with, and I want to create a relationship with her family. So I'm going to go because I really want to hang out with their family. I want to see them and cultivate that relationship versus being like, oh, well, I'll just go for you. You know what I mean? And then, same thing for me with like his, whatever, like his interests were, his sports stuff. That sounds...
Reframing relational responsibilities with desire.
Yeah, exactly.
And that will translate to the places you want it to translate it to.
100%. 100%. And it does, your Ayo got me. Now you are feeling better as well, now you are able to enjoy yourself within that as well. Because I was finding myself in the relationship as well, doing things like, I'll do this for him, yada, yada, yada. And now if I feel tired, I feel like I don't want to be here. I feel like, okay, when can we go? And versus being there, be like, oh, this will be a fun experience, or this will be, I get to talk more with these people that are really close in his life. And that, like, now I'm doing it for myself, and now I feel more energized in that. It's coming from my well versus like trying to tap into his.
Exactly. And in that, I guess the 50-50 conversation becomes more relevant. I'm not going to talk about it right now because I still think it makes more sense.
We'll talk about it next episode.
And the other one. But I think that concept is really relevant when it comes to the sex conversation. Specifically.
What do you mean?
You'll hear a lot of women participating because they feel like it's an obligation that they have to do versus like be here for yourself versus being here for me. Right. And then there's a fun conversation. Esther Perel, once again, she has a podcast too that I really love. It's called Where Do We Begin?
Ooh.
And it is...
I'll have to take a listen.
No, yeah, it's so good.
I didn't know she had a podcast. I would have been listening to that, Jem. You know how I like podcasts.
I don't know how this has never come up in a conversation.
I know, literally.
Because literally most of the things that I say is derived from like shit I've heard her talk to other people about. So,
and I've also told you that I do better listening.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have no idea. Anyways, it's fine. Where do we begin? It's a therapy session, a live therapy session, kind of like that one
couples therapy,
but
show.
It's podcast version, right? There was one lady who was arguing with her husband, talking about how she does all these things and she just doesn't feel like appreciated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the man brought up something very interesting. He was saying that he doesn't enjoy the sex that he has with her. And when he said that, and he mentioned it before to her, right? But immediately dismissed, immediately shut down, right?
Okay.
He said to the podcast, and she like was just going off because like to her, what she heard when he said that was that she's not good enough, she's not attractive, she's not sexy, she's not a person that I want to have sex with, right? But what he was saying was, when we're in these moments, you seem like you're just trying to get it over with. And I don't feel like I'm connecting with you.
Totally.
I don't feel like this is the intimate moment that I want it to be. I just feel like we're going through the motions, and you only are here because you're trying to like get me off, basically. And that's not the type of sex I want to have with you.
Right.
He couldn't articulate it like that.
Right.
He was just stuck on I don't like the sex I have with you.
I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And then the Esther Perel like
helps
brought
kind
it
of
back, right?
Yeah.
Which is what couples therapy is for. Like,
right. Hopefully your therapist can do that.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful moment. And I was like, that's so interesting to me because men have hormonal cycles, contrary to popular belief. They're just not.
I think everyone knows.
I don't think it's talked about nearly as much as
men
it
have
should
like
be.
a 24-hour cycle versus like hormonal cycle.
No, they have monthly ones too.
Oh, that I did not know. Okay.
So they have a monthly hormonal cycle that fluctuates on the weeks. It's not as like specific or as extreme as a woman's one, right? So they can more consistently participate in sexual things without necessarily being affected, right? Testosterone, whatever, cool.
Totally.
Whereas a woman has, and it fluctuates, there's no consistency between women either. So there's no like rules like, oh, like in week 4, your girl's going to be like this and you just have to like get with it. It's like, but no, like week 4, your girl can be like this, my girl will be like this, that girl will be like over there. It's like, there's no consistency. So you really have to kind of like participate to understand.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make with that is if you're just not feeling it, and let's say that you negotiate a certain time to like have sex in your relationship, and like it's Friday, it comes around, and you're just psychologically, hormonally, physically just not in the mood. It's just dry as a fucking, I don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Desert down there, whatever. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Do something else and talk about that and be open and willing. Don't think that you just have to participate because it's something that you said you did. If the things change, it's actually worse for your relationship
100%.
to stick to that and be like, well, it's just something I have to do. We can use lubrication, whatever. There's ways to get around that. It's like, no.
And now you're doing it in a half-assed manner.
Yeah.
You've now denied yourself in some way, and there's an alternative. You can still come to your partner and say, hey, you can still do something intimate and connecting. Like, I just don't have the energy for this, or say it in maybe a better way.
Right.
But like you're saying, you don't have to do that. We can still connect in other ways, you know?
And piggybacking off of that, like self-denial, right?
Right.
Sex is as much for you, the individual, as it is for the other person.
Yeah.
So if you're just participating in it, just because you're going through the motion, then you're robbing your own self of an experience that you should want to have more involvement in. Like in my brain, I can't wrap my mind around the idea of participating in a sexual encounter that like I don't really want to participate in. It's like, I'm not really, I owe it to my own damn self and my pleasure and my eroticism and my intimacy and my like interaction with myself to enjoy participating in that space.
Yeah.
So if I'm not feeling it, we have to do something else.
Right.
And there's so many other things to do, like you were saying, and so many ways to connect intimately. And we're going to talk about that in the last episode 6.
Yeah.
Where we'll really go into the different ways to do that. But I just wanted to, since we brought up that idea, I think it really relates. Like, no, don't do things because you feel like you need to. Do things because you want to.
Yeah.
And especially in the erotic space, do things because you feel the way.
100%.
And on the opposite end, for men, if your girl isn't necessarily feeling it, there is a way to into the mood without necessarily being a physical thing.
Yeah.
The line that is connected through most women is that while sex is very physical for men, it's very psychological for women.
Sure. So, right.
If it's not hormones, right, it might just be something in her brain that she someone cut her off earlier in the day, right? And she like didn't know how much she internalized that,
right?
But she's internalizing it,
right?
And you just being a horny dog that's like upset that you not being able to like have sex with her is not gonna help her get out of that. So you have to bring the erotic context and the erotic space to her, and like kind of guide her out of that funk that she's in her mind,
right?
So that she feels like she's able to express and connect with you on a sexual level.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, 100%. I totally agree.
Don't necessarily think like, oh, I don't feel like doing it is like an end all be all.
Yeah. That's where it ends. You now go to bed. Everyone's unhappy. Like it doesn't have to end there.
Which is not to, I have to disclaim this because like, that's not to say like no doesn't mean no. Like consent is obviously still a thing. Right. But
even with that, like when you, especially when it comes to sex, when physical, like obviously physical intimacy, that's exactly where people go immediately when they think of intimacy. And not to go into this too much because I know we're going to be talking about this in the next episode. But when you do something physical that you do not want to do, your heart's not in it, your brain's not in it, you're not in it, it's self-violating, you know, like you're like, that might be like harsh, but it's really self-violating. Like you truly are denying yourself. Like you are denying your own, like you're taking away your own consent from yourself, and you're doing something that you ultimately don't want to do. And like now you are, I don't know. And that alone is like you're I don't know. You're stripping. I don't know if it's like trust that you're stripping away from yourself, or what exactly that is, but something's getting stripped. Yeah, and it's not just your clothes, right? For sure. Exactly. I don't know. It's not just your clothes, but yeah. So it's really not. I have always stood very firmly on that when it comes to, because I think women oftentimes can feel this pressure to perform in the physical way of like feeling like they should have all this sex all the time. Like, he's going to want to have sex all the time.
And then even on top of that, like men actively pressure women.
No, exactly.
It's like women 100%. Might feel that, but also like it's also being generated.
Right. 100%. Right? Men with like these super high libidos, and they're like, well, why don't you want to have sex all the time? Like I'll, whatever. There's just so much pressure around it. And so then when you on top of that, then do the thing that you don't want to do in the first place, like no one's winning in that scenario, and especially for yourself.
Right. And you feel like you can't have the conversation around it.
No.
The more you do the thing that you don't want to do, the harder it is to talk about why you don't want to do it, which is, we might have said that. I don't know if we did or not. But yeah, so, like if you build the habit of just like constantly denying yourself.
Right.
Especially in the sexual, like you've been doing this entire time. Why all of a sudden shit change? Well, shit can change. It is what it is. But at the same time, you can avoid that type of interaction with doing what you want to do in the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Relationships again, contrary to popular belief, relationships are supposed to be designed for you, built for you, for your benefit.
Yeah.
People are always like, no, it's all about what you can do for your partner. It is.
Yeah.
That's what makes relationships work. True.
Yeah.
But they have to be designed for you.
Yeah.
And then you can worry about the other person.
Yeah.
It's if two people, and this is the that idea that two complete people come together to create a relationship.
Sure.
If two people are actively petitioning for their own side of things and creating a structure that benefits both sides, then the relationship that becomes, or the relationship that is formed as a byproduct of that is going to be 1,000 times healthier than people that are advocating for each other.
Yeah.
Right? Because you know what you want, what you need better than the closest person to you.
Yeah.
Maybe your mom might be the only person that knows what you need better than I do.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Or better than you do. Other than that, you have to pull up your pants and advocate for yourself.
Right.
And it's okay.
Exactly. And it feels counterintuitive because what we have learned in a social sense of even growing up, your parents telling you don't be selfish, selfish, having
especially with siblings.
Yeah.
Dude, all our siblings.
Don't get me started. We have to share everything.
Yeah, no, that's something. That's a fun relationship little segue we can talk about too.
Right.
Family, anyways.
So, there's constantly this negative connotation around focusing on the self, and that by focusing on the self, that means that you are other people around you are being negatively impacted. Right. They're being neglected in some way. So it feels counterintuitive, but really, it really isn't. By focusing on yourself, by, if your cup is full, if you have understanding of yourself, you will naturally and easily give and positively impact the people around you.
And that idea that families, especially Black families, like to propagate into the situation, talking about like, if you focus on yourself, then the people around you are negatively affected. There's some sort of deficit in your surroundings if you focus on yourself. It's super toxic.
Yeah, 100%.
It's insanely toxic because like you were saying, if your cup is full, you can overflow and not be a burden. If your cup is half full, you try to give out of that, then people are actually not receiving the extent of what they can be. Right. And that's worse in the long run. For everyone. Mostly yourself. Yeah. So Black people, Black families, Black mothers, whatever, you have children, all that stuff. Stop telling your kids that.
Yeah. And I think that also comes from it's rooted in religion to some degree as well, at least from my upbringing of just it's not about, it's not your plan, it's God's plan for your life. These concepts that exist, that it's never about you. It's outsourced to this omnipresent being.
Religious ideas they can only go so far before they start breaking down on the individual level. Yeah. But we will talk about that when we talk about it, because that shit's so annoying.
So annoying.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I think relationships and the goal that relationships are trying to kind of achieve, it's a very ambitious goal. Yeah. It's very lofty.
Totally.
To fall in love with a person, to develop love for a person, to exist in a relationship with all the rules and the structures and the responsibilities and stuff like that. It's very difficult. Yeah. So
there's a lot of variables at play in what will make a relationship a good relationship to be in. And it's not just, are you two good people, right?
Right. And I think culture kind of betrays that, because the implication is that if you find someone good enough, then your relationship should be a breeze. Yeah. And the feeling of ease, I think, is what we get caught up in. It's like, this should feel easy. It's like, what it feels like and what it is aren't necessarily the same thing. Sure. And that's why I think the negotiation of terms at the beginning is really important. Yeah. And then being honest with yourself first and with your partner, super, super necessary, super important, for you to give yourself your best chance at relational success. Yeah. Because on top of honesty, being realistic as well. Yeah. Because to be honest, some of the things that you think you need just are very dumb. Right.
You don't need that.
You don't. That's not a need. That's not, again, self-awareness, right? That's not a need. It's
just a bonus.
Yeah. That's it. No, you need to pay for all my shit, or you need to take me on all these trips, or all the unrealistic things that you hear on the internet all the time. Right. It's go marry this 50-year-old millionaire then if you want to be a sugar baby, find a sugar daddy.
Right. What you are describing is
this is not what I'm trying to do. Come on now.
It's not a relationship, it's a transaction. Right. That's what you're describing.
Right. No, and 100%. There's people that are perfectly willing to do all that. Yeah. But then those type of people that find those interactions want more from that interaction. Where you went into it with an expectation.
Eventually those other things that you've been avoiding will come, the typical relationship things. I mean, and as we've kind of in this latter half have kind of dived into later parts of a relationship and what that looks like, negotiations will always be happening. These conversations are always happening. And, once again, reiterating, doing that, starting that right from the jump is just so important, because you're creating, I always say, I feel like I've been saying this, it's a dance. You're creating the dance, and you have to learn the dance either way. So might as well start doing it now. Right. Start learning the two-step. All right.
Do the two-step. Hey, fuck it. But yeah, so self-awareness, be realistic, be honest, really do some soul searching. Yeah. Really get in there, understand what it is you want and need. Yeah. And tell it to people directly, because they need to know. Yeah. And they need to know for you, and they need to know for themselves as well.
Yeah. 100%. And that can be applied in any degree or relationship, friendship,
Yeah,
interactions.
Any
with
type
people,
of human interaction, that's going to be necessary. Also, too, how well you set the ground rules and the framework for this interaction is going to define how well you engage in the next half of what exclusivity is, and that's like the connection and the intimacy.
Right.
You can only connect and grow and participate in an interaction as well as you know the terms and the rules.
Yeah.
Otherwise, y'all are going to be doing two completely different things and wondering why it's not working.
Right. On two completely different pages.
It's crazy to me. That happens way too often in my life. I'm just like, come on, y'all. Be for real. What is this? Come on. And then the last point, the reversal of everything we just said.
Yeah.
Leave room for self-discovery.
Yeah.
Be flexible. Flexibility is the key. Totally. Have all these things, be this way, move for yourself, exist for yourself, but understand that the goal is to create an interaction that benefits people.
Right.
It should benefit you first. That's how you're thinking about it. But long term, it needs to be productive for both of you.
Yeah. Where you feel like you are learning and growing and evolving.
And if you're learning and growing and evolving, then your terms and all these things, the conversations will change and evolve with you.
Exactly.
Hopefully. And if they don't, that's a problem.
And then you're maybe not learning, growing, and evolving as much as you think you are.
Exactly. So just leave room for the change and grow with that and explore that and constantly have these conversations and never settle in the sense of never cheat yourself on the potential interaction that you can have.
So true. Agree with that.
But that about wraps it up.
Yeah, I think that's it for this episode.
Let us know what you thought. If you're an empath, let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know.
They're shaking in their boots. I don't know that they want to tell you, Jem.
I think they're going to tell me because they're shaking in their boots. Like that's a polarizing statement. They're going to have to say something.
They have to say.
They have to defend their honor. Yes. What do you mean? So let me know. Gosh. Let me know if you're an empath and if you think you're an empath, why you think that, and if you're not an empath, do you think empaths exist?
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought about the episode and follow us on all our social media.
Yep.
At We.The.Intellectuals.
Very exciting. And we'll see you next week to wrap up this series.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of sad that ending a little bit.
I know.
A piece of me is kind of, God, you know what I mean?
This is the first baby of the podcast. So,
And we popped it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, we were like bang, bang, bang.
Like 3 episodes in a series. Wow.
Right.
That's kind of wild, but... at the end of the day, I'm Jem.
And I'm Renee.
And we're the Intellectuals signing off until next time.
All right. Bye.